Hello, everyone.
Hey guys, on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the double edged sword of comparison and why comparison can be a good thing, but it can also be very, very detrimental to your relationship.
But before we do, please remember to hit that like button, give us a thumbs up, and of course, hit that subscribe button because when you subscribe, it makes me smile. Don't forget in the description, there is a link to our Patreon. And of course, we're doing YouTube memberships now, so you can also be a part of that. But check out our Patreon because there's a lot of things that you won't get through the YouTube membership that you will on Patreon, including access to our Discord and some other goodies. So definitely check that out below in the description.
All right, guys, so getting into this idea of comparison, it comparing yourself to other couples can actually be beneficial, but it can become very detrimental very quickly if you're not careful. So, we kind of wanted to talk through when does comparison become a detriment to your relationship, and how can you maybe look at other couples as an inspiration without kind of getting down on yourself in the process.
This is something that's kind of happens just in life in general, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is across the board, but specifically talking about domestic discipline, I know that when we started, we didn't necessarily have a good resource that we wanted to 100% emulate. So I don't know if we really got into comparing ourselves to other couples, would
Maybe
you
not too
say?
much. Yeah, maybe not too much because again, there weren't a whole lot of resources out there.
Not when we first started. However, I would say once our Discord community kind of got going, I fell down this trap a little bit. And I had to kind of give myself a little reality check along the way to because our Discord server is such a good resource
Really
for
is.
being able to talk to other couples and see how they're doing things, trying to find ideas. But I find myself kind of comparing myself to other couples that maybe I think are doing things more closely to what I was wanting or what I think I want. And that happened in the beginning, less so now because I have kind of made a habit of not letting myself go there. But it's really hard and it's something that you have to be aware of because it can happen.
The first thing that I want you all to remember, though, is that this is just part of human nature. So once you know that that's just part of who we are as humans, is we compare one another, and that's okay. I mean, that's going to happen. That's just part of who we are. Because again, there is a positive side to this. So don't be afraid to just acknowledge. Okay, this is just a part of who we are. We want to compare, we want to contrast because that's how we learn ultimately is to compare one another. What Arya is talking about, though, is there is a really positive side to this, but then there can be a negative side, obviously, and that's when we really start to compare and judge ourselves based on a standard that may or may not be there, but we've tried what we've done in our own minds is we have made a standard or an idea that's really not there. It's self-induced, in other words.
And so I think that one thing, like, I want to go into the positive aspects. What are the positive aspects of looking to other couples and comparing what they're doing to what you're doing and seeing where you can improve and grow? Because there are positive aspects. So,
Absolutely.
one of those aspects that is really positive is that you have the opportunity to see what is working for someone else. I think that sometimes we can get ideas in our mind and they're not necessarily realistic. So when you see another couple um, giving a description of a realistic application of certain elements of their relationship, you can really see, okay, they're doing it this way and it's really working for them in their real relationship. And so maybe that's something that we can pull from and see if it works for us. And that's really the key there is you want to see if it's going to work in your relationship because your relationship is different than every other relationship that you see.
Really, our relationship's different?
Yes, I mean,
Absolutely.
no two relationships are going to be the same. No two personalities are going to be the same. So my personality is so different than every other taken in hand I've ever met. Coda's personality is so different from every other head of household that I've ever interacted with. And so you're going to have to take those things into account. But being able to see what is really working for other real couples is a good thing because you
Yes.
can take that inspiration to maybe try some things that you haven't really considered.
Some of the things she's talking about may seem a little obvious. You're saying, well, of course, there's two different people there. It's not going to look the same, but that's exactly the point. Yes, is the first thing is remember that in a relationship, you are a unique person, and so is your spouse, and so that relationship automatically, because you're two different people, you're two unique people, are going to look drastically different. But at the same time, as she's talking about, and again, I'm going to plug our Discord. This is what's so good about being part of our community in the Discord is you get a chance to see what other couples are doing and how some of the things that they're implementing, how unique it is to their relationship. But maybe look at some of those things and say, maybe that might work for us, and maybe not exactly in the same way, but we can take that model that they've done such a great job cultivating and put that into our relationship and make a few tweaks, and you never know, maybe that would help you in your relationship.
Another positive aspect of comparing is to be able to see what are some of the mistakes and pitfalls another couple has made, and are you potentially headed towards those same mistakes, and you can see that pattern and see what they went through and try to avoid those same mistakes. Everyone's going to make mistakes along the way. None of us are perfect, and you can try your hardest to do all the research and to set up all the systems. There's still going to be a learning curve. We set up this podcast really as a resource to help others have a slightly less learning curve than we did. We definitely had quite a learning curve in the beginning. And really, for the first few years, we were really working through what was going to work for us. And so we wanted to set up this podcast to be able to provide a resource for other couples to look at what we did wrong so that they can maybe avoid those mistakes. And I think that that's one really positive aspect of looking to other couples' relationships to kind of see where they went wrong and how to avoid those same things.
One of the things that all of us do, and I'm the king of this, is I don't like making mistakes, and I'm trying to get better at actually saying, mistakes are not necessarily bad. In fact, the majority of the time, that's obviously a good thing because that's how we learn. That's how we get better. So just remember, really don't worry about the mistakes. Use those mistakes as opportunities to really grow and help your relationships, and don't be afraid to make them, and don't think anybody, including us, are experts in this area. We're just not.
Are there any other specific positives that you can think of for comparing yourself, for looking to other couples for inspiration?
Yes, because you've heard me talk a lot about on podcasts about I'm a goal setter, and maybe you're a goal setter. The positive side, but this can also be a negative, so you have to be very, very careful. But I think a positive can be if there's a couple that you really admire some of the things that they're doing, and you want some of those same things in your relationship, set that as a goal. Use them as a measuring stick to an extent. That's why I say you got to be careful with this, because then you can find yourself playing the negative comparison game, which we'll get into in a minute. But you could also use them as a goal and say, you know what, there are a few things in their relationship that we really want to inspire to. So we're going to use them as kind of the model, or again, the inspiration to aspire to. So don't be afraid to use that as a goal set to try to get there. That's always a good thing.
You're right. I didn't even think about using something that you're seeing within another couple's dynamic that you are really admiring, using that as a way to set goals to aspire to in your own relationship. Again, as long as you are looking at what will realistically work for you and you're not setting goals outside of what you can realistically accomplish with your uniqueness.
And remember, and we may want to talk about this on the negative side, so I may be jumping ahead just a little bit. When you're setting those goals, it's okay to have that long-term goal. Just try to make the goals saying, well, we're not going to be able to get there quite yet, but we'll put that up as maybe our 2-year, our 5-year goal, and we'll work to get up there. And so just make sure that you're goal setting in the right way. That's not going to be discouraging to you.
And maybe we should do a whole podcast on how to set goals.
That might be a great one. Let us know if that's something that you'd like us to do.
If you want to hear that, let us know in the comments so that we know if that's something that you guys would find valuable.
Should we go to those darn negatives?
Yeah, let's go to the negative side of comparing, because I think more often than not, we do fall into those negative pitfalls of comparing ourselves to others. And it's something that we really need to think about and be aware of.
We do, unfortunately.
So obviously one of the major negatives of comparing is that you become discontent with where you are, where your partner is, and you stop seeing the good things of your relationship, and you're only seeing where you're failing to live up to that other couple's example.
This is, as many of you may know already, this can be really detrimental to a relationship, because obviously if both partners are doing this compare and contrast, this begins the one thing that you're trying to avoid in your relationship: arguments. And as Ari was saying, the discontent can then breed even bitterness. I've seen it even get that far. And that's what you don't want to have happen. Or if just one person is feeling that, then there's this unnecessary pressure that goes on to the other person, because you're wanting them to maybe be further along than they really are. Or again, you're just saying, well, this can happen and this is not a good thing, where you're going, well, I wish I was married to this other person. I wish my spouse was more like that. There's nothing more detrimental to the relationship than playing that kind of comparison game. And so just try to avoid that. Remember, we're all running our own race. Some of us are more ahead in areas than other couples. Some of us are a little further behind in other areas than other couples. That's okay. You got to run your own race.
And this has very little to do with how long you've been doing domestic discipline. I know that it's just where you are in your personal growth in certain areas. And some people are going to have a lot of growth in one area where they struggle in others, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And so really playing that comparison game and looking at them and saying, man, I wish we were like that, or I wish my partner was like that, or why can't we be where they are? And you start to really just look at that as like, not as a goal, not as something to admire, but more of with a almost like an envious lens to it, where you're like, man, if we could only be there, then we would be set. Our relationship would be so much better if we could just do what they're doing. And you start to not appreciate your relationship, not appreciate your partner, and not appreciate where you are in your journey.
We all have a tendency to want to be further along than we are. We do that. I'm notorious, as maybe some of you are, where I've played the comparison game in my profession and different things like that. And what I've learned is when I've talked to some of those people that are further ahead, it's just like Aria said, as I talked to them, I saw them just in one area or one aspect of what they do. And yes, they were further along in that area than I was. But as I got to talk to them, I was actually further ahead in an area that they weren't. And so, but it was a great opportunity, getting on the positive side a little bit again. It was a great opportunity for them to learn from me and me to learn from them. And we were able to help each other in those areas that we were weak. So again, don't look at that as don't play the comparison game from the standpoint of, man, I wish you were like that, or I wish we were like that. But say, hey, again, that's something for us to aspire to, but let's not try to get from step 1 to step 7 as quickly as possible. Let's go through those steps.
Now, I will say that, to piggyback on something that Coda just said, where he was talking about he was only seeing one aspect of this person's journey or accomplishments, and that's what he was really starting to compare with. we need to realize that when we look at other couples, whether it be on social media, whether it be through communities like our Discord or, Facebook groups or whatever the case may be, blogs, podcasts, anytime that you are seeing a representation of a couple, they are playing up their strengths, they are playing up where they are having success, and they will downplay where they're having failures. You hardly ever hear someone go into great detail about how they're struggling. And you hardly ever see someone, um, really talk through all of the aspects of that. They might mention a struggle here and there, but they're not going to really camp in that subject. They're really going to play up where they're succeeding. And so you have to realize that you are seeing a skewed perspective. You're not seeing a full picture of what this couple's relationship really looks like. And so to compare, your entire picture to their highlight reel is going to just not give you a fair comparison. And it is almost designed to make you feel bad about yourself, to be completely honest. And so you really have to combat that and say, you know what? I'm going to be grateful for who my partner is. I'm going to be grateful for our relationship. I'm going to be grateful for the effort that they're putting in. And, I really admire what this couple is doing and I want to aspire to that. But I understand that we are on a journey here and that journey might take time. It's going to take some amount of time, but it could be faster or slower depending on personalities, circumstances. There's a whole lot of factors into why growth happens either quickly or slowly, and you can't force growth.
One of the things that's really, really important, and we all tend to do this, I'm the worst at this, is I don't want to look at my failures or my mistakes, right? Because they're not fun to look at. But again, hopefully, as I'm growing older and hopefully wiser, trying to look at my mistakes more and more. I'm trying to look at my shortcomings more and more and realize that they're really opportunities for me to grow. But again, just like Arya was saying, you're not going to see everybody's mistakes and their failures because um, rightfully so, we're not going to always necessarily share them with one another because of a lot of different reasons. But that doesn't mean they're not there. Remember, everybody struggles. Everybody has their failures and successes. And again, people are going to highlight, as they should. It's not that they shouldn't. They're going to highlight where they have had successes and where their strengths are. And that is important because that's what we do need to showcase. We got enough negativity, right, going on that we want to see what is good and what is positive. But just remember, if you can keep in mind that everybody, again, is on the same journey and they're on different places in the road than maybe you all, but you run your own race and you get to the goals that you have set and just use them not as measuring sticks, but again, maybe as a goal that you're trying to get to. But just remember, again, you're two unique individuals that are in a relationship that would look totally different, even if as simple as if you were to take your partner out and put someone else in, the problems are not going to go away. The issues that you have in domestic discipline are not going to go away because now you have two different people that are going to have a totally new set of problems. And that's sometimes what we don't understand as couples, right? Is just because you insert a different person in there that you think might be better, nope, that's not going to happen. We all bring our own baggage and we all bring our strengths and weaknesses to the relationship.
The discontentment that can come through comparison really is like the biggest one.
It really is.
But another negative of comparing yourself to others is that it can discourage you.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It can discourage you from trying to get better, trying to improve, trying to set goals and obtain them, because you can look at somebody else's relationship and you can be like, man, they are doing the thing. Like they are at the goal, what you think your goal is. That might not even be their goal, but you think like, man, they have achieved the accolades, they have achieved the status, they have achieved, they have arrived, and I am never ever going to get there, so I should just give up. That's not true. And that's a really negative aspect of comparing yourself, and you really do need to try to not fall into that trap of feeling like you are not good enough and you're never going to be good enough and you need to just stop trying now. Don't do that, because it is a journey and we all start from ground zero, and we all have our unique path to growth. And I know that through the years, our journey has taken us to different places. What we would have said our goal was 5 years ago is not our goals today. And it's not where we are today. Like, our goals shifted and changed as we grew, as we learned more, and as we saw other couples and tried to admire what they were doing and emulate some of the things that they were doing, and seeing the successes that they were having, we're like, okay, we're going to shift our goals because we really like what they're doing. But we didn't let that get us down and say, man, we're never going to get there, so we just should just throw in the towel now.
Instead of getting discouraged, which can happen, believe me, I am the king of discouragement. Aria can tell you, I'm always the guy that when I'm comparing, I get discouraged and I want to throw in the towel. But the mindset I'm trying to adapt in every aspect of life, that's an opportunity for me to change, for me to learn. And one of the things that was instilled in me by one of my mentors many, many years ago is he said, if you ever wake up and you think that you've arrived, you shouldn't live any more of life, because life is about a journey. Life is about getting better. And the moment you think you've arrived, you're no good to anybody else, because you've achieved something that none of us should want to have, which is pride and arrogance, right? And again, why is that important? Because the moment you think you've achieved it, your partner may not, or you start saying, well, I think we have. Why aren't you measuring up to the bar that I have set? Because we should be up here, because that's the way I perceive it. That will never help your relationship. Go on your journey again, run your own race, because that will be the most helpful to you. And when you feel discouraged, say, no, this is an opportunity rather than being discouraged. It's an opportunity for me to learn and to get better.
And discouragement kind of has two sides to it.
Absolutely.
You can be discouraged to the point of giving up. We've kind of talked through that. But you can also be discouraged to the point of just lowering your standard.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yep,
if you don't think
absolutely
that
right.
you can measure up to what you really want, then you might be tempted to just kind of lower the standard. And then that is detrimental to your relationship, because you're never going to be able to challenge yourself to grow.
It's the good enough thing, right?
Yeah.
It's good enough, right?
And I think that, I really do think that we fell into this at some
Probably
stages
multiple
of our growth.
times.
And we've had to kind of pick ourselves up and say, okay, stop with this woe is me. We need to stop with that, and we need to really reassess and set some higher standards, because when you lower your standards, whether you're the head of household or the taken in hand, or maybe this happens collectively as a couple, when you set low standards, you're basically saying, I don't believe that I'm capable, or I don't believe that my partner is capable of doing more than this. And that's kind of a defeatist attitude.
Absolutely.
And obviously, you want to look at your situation, you want to look at your personalities, you want to look at your goals for your relationship and set realistic standards, but don't intentionally set low standards so that you can mitigate the opportunity for failure, right? And I think that that's a natural desire. Nobody wants to fail. But if you don't set high enough standards, and you don't understand that failure sometimes can be part of the process and part of the learning and part of the growth, and you basically say, I don't want to fail, so therefore I'm going to set really low standards, you are not giving yourself an opportunity to be your best. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do domestic discipline, is I wanted to be better than what I was, and I wanted to be the best version of myself. I wanted to bring my best into our relationship, and I wanted our relationship to be the best that it could be.
We've talked a lot about this way that our relationship was really stagnating. And we've not sat here, and I'm not going to sit here now and say, yes, now domestic discipline has solved all those problems. In many ways that it has, but the challenge always is even in domestic discipline, it can get stagnant. So the point being is that you always need to be growing, you always need to be learning. And so if you keep that in mind, again, you'll look at the mistakes as opportunities. You won't get discouraged because you'll say, you know what, this is just part of the process. This is just another part of the journey.
Comparison can be a good thing. It can give you an opportunity to see what's working for other couples, try to emulate what you find to be beneficial. It can help you set goals. It can really help you see what's working so that you can maybe make those things work for you. But on the flip side, if you let it, it can really take you to a dark place where you are just discouraged and discontent your relationships. And that can potentially lead to you giving up or lowering the standard and, or kind of blaming your partner for not being who you want them to be. And that's just not going to meet any goals of your relationship. And so you just want to be careful not to let yourself go into that negative side of comparing, but really just use other couples as inspiration um, for your relationship. But look at what's going to be realistic for you.
I think well said. I hope this episode was helpful to you all. There's a lot to unpack here, but as Arya said, just use these. Try to look at the positive sides of comparison and not get trapped into the negative sides. And I think that you'll find that it'll really benefit your domestic discipline relationship.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to let us know what you thought of this topic down below, and we will talk to you next time.
See you later.